How does one convince people to build a Gothic cathedral? Royalty are easy to convince, provided they are prosperous and egotistical, and the church will foam at the mouth to build another holy site. But clergy and nobles do not make a workforce. What I want to know is, how does one get the laborers, artisans, materials, and land for a building project that will take over a century? Nobody who is laying those first stones will be alive to see the cathedral consecrated. The answer, of course, is dollars, florins, ducats, and pounds. Hard currency. Money can be raised in a variety of ways, such as selling burial plots under the cathedral, selling time-sensitive indulgences, or collecting donations. Once the money is raised, one could hire a master builder for the steep fee of £50 per year, which really seems like a steal, but after a dubious conversions is actually 96,000 modern dollars. The master builder, member of one of the most secretive math-inclined groups since Pythagoras, then makes the relevant stakeholders a model, and as an engineer by trade myself, I am sure that no stakeholder has ever made a bad or late change request to the master builder. After one more round of revisions than were useful, the master builder has a design, and the massive logistical machine is set into motion. But wait, I hear you cry, like so many accountants begging their clients not to take their kids' college fund to Vegas. How do we keep the money flowing if there are so many other workers beyond the master builder? By using one of the best tools in any project's arsenal. No, not unpaid overtime, but the right tool for the job. The right tool increases efficiency and lets a smaller team of professionals do work that previously required much larger, untrained teams. Whether it's the small chisel of the stonecutter or the mighty treadwheel crane that lifts the limestone blocks of the cathedral into place. And that crane is exactly what we are talking about today. How a crane works is relatively simple, but extremely important. Cranes typically have a boom arm that sits directly above the object being lifted, a hoist mechanism that pulls the rope, a hook or bucket to carry material, and a pulley to amplify the lifting force. The pulley is how we cheat physics. It is our little trick to increase the weight lifted by a single human or team of humans. Put these all together like it's the Powerpuff Girls, and one makes a crane that can seriously reduce human effort. The treadwheel is a pulley that was operated by walking inside a large wheel rather than pulling on levers or rope. Humans started trying to beat creation at our own game as early as 2200 BCE. When the Sumerians were using an irrigation crane called the shadoof. No, that's a bidoof. Yes, that one. A simple lever arm to flood the fields of early farmers. It would be 1700 more years before the Greeks invented the tripastos, the first recognizable construction crane. This early example of the machines taking jobs traded slaves for small, skilled teams of builders who could complete work faster and more reliably. The Greeks slowly innovated on their cranes until the Romans entered the picture with their customary lack of chill and willingness to steal good ideas. The Romans kept improving the cranes with an advanced pulley that could create greater mechanical advantage in a more compact space, which they called the compound pulley because they weren't pretentious French mathematicians. I'm looking at you, L Hospital. The Romans also added a great wheel, the treadwheel, for humans or beasts of burden to walk in. The treadwheel gave the user additional leverage in large loads and made the labor itself much easier. This was the first treadwheel crane, called the polypaston. This technology was lost in Europe after the decline of the Roman Empire in the West, but would be rediscovered in the early 1200s when it spread like fidget spinners and the plague. Cranes significantly advanced the pace of castle and cathedral building across northern Europe. In most of the surviving crane diagrams we have, it would appear that the compound pulley was lost with Rome's engineers. So the cranes rely on the large diameter of the treadwheel for the mechanical advantage instead of the compound pulley. In real terms, this translates to lifting smaller pieces of stone per lift. No doubt, some of you are thinking that this crane is too complex for your delicate sensibilities, and with civilizations like the Greeks and Romans having massive slave populations, wouldn't it be easier to force people to simply move the blocks up a ramp? First of all, no. Imagine the size of that ramp. By the end of Western Rome, a treadwheel crane could lift over 6 tons, or around 12,000 pounds of material, with only 2 operators who could be free, slaves, or animals. A team of 50 paid workers in Egypt could only drag a 2.5-ton rock. For you math kids, that's an efficiency increase of 6,000%. In mass, that percent increase is the difference between a 20-pound Scottish Terrier and a 1,200-pound Scottish Terrier. This made unskilled workers costly and inefficient compared to small professional teams of builders. If you need further convincing that slavery is inefficient, I recommend Sherman's Seaside Hiking Trail. So now our team has its funding, they have their tools, and people are scurrying to and fro as a new great work emerges over the medieval city. The cranes will be built, taken down, and moved higher into the building as it is constructed, giving the impression that the crane wanders all over the building as the key elements of Gothic work are added. The first floor will have the iconic Gothic detail of the pointed arch, rib vaulting, and usually with elaborate thin windows surrounded by a tracery tracery of thin stone ribs. There will be flying buttresses, spectacular arched constructions that support the walls from the exterior instead of using internal cores as we do today. Often, all of the building will be covered in elaborate details such as gargoyles, faces, saints, and of course, stained glass. Some of the most famous churches, such as the Strasbourg Cathedral, will feature rose windows. Large round windows with distinct geometries that resemble the petals of a rose, filled with stained glass to let light into the cathedral. Cranes were often left in the highest alcoves of the building, for which the stated reason was to allow repair materials to be lifted to wherever they are needed. I often wonder if it was best practice, or if disassembling the crane was simply not worth the effort if it is already out of the way. Treadwheels would eventually be replaced by cranes with gearboxes, steam, and later electric cranes, and eventually the great diesel-powered lifts we have today.